All right, Jenna, look, let me start with this. I don't think Russ being benched is as big of a deal as the media is making it out to be, and I understand why they are making it a big deal. It's a great headline. It's a sexy story. You can sensationalize it and all that. So I understand that. But it's not like Russ is definitely out of the closing unit for the rest of the season. At every level of sports, in every sport, you play the guys that help you win the game. All right, and if one of your top players is having a bad night and just doesn't have it that night, there's nothing wrong, as Frank Vogel and Westbrook said, with sitting him out. There's nothing wrong with that. So I got to start with that. But that said, it still is the bigger story than LeBron having a triple-double. I expected LeBron to have a great game. Now, I might not have expected a 29-point triple-double, but I expected him to play terrifically because he's played terrifically just about every single time I've seen him this year. All right, so LeBron James having a fantastic game, to me, is not a big story. Unfortunately, maybe for him, because we should prop it up a little more. But the bigger story is definitely Westbrook not playing in overtime, because if Wilds, he doesn't have the right attitude, and so far he does, at least from what he said in the press conference. But if he gets despondent, if he gets angry, if he starts hearing, people in his ear saying, oh, Russ, you going to take that? I can't believe they benched you. If he puts himself ahead of the team, then it could become a problem. But if not, this shouldn't be something that can derail the Lakers season.
Okay, so here's why I think Russ was by far the bigger story. When Russ joined the Lakers, it started with media confusion. You know what? Don't think that quite works. And then it didn't work. And then we heard all sorts of excuses and rationale out of LA, Nick, on why it wasn't working. We heard, you know what? It's just a chemistry thing with new guys. Then we heard, you know what? He's pressing because he's in front of his hometown. He feels an anxiety about playing in LA. And then it's just is he being played, or is Vogel playing him right? Are these lineups right? And now we finally got to the crux of it, which is, you know what? We're better off with this guy not playing. To me, if you get benched in overtime, DNP, coach's decision, is not miles away. It's not an ocean away. If you say, you know what, we're better off with this guy sitting on the bench. Shannon broke it down very simple. Said this guy's making $44 million a year. He's a former MVP, and he hurts the team. In overtime, you can't play him.
Yeah, and I think you're both out of your mind. And here's why. I'm going to try to give a good reference point. Happened, it was about 27 years ago. Do we all remember it was late August 1995, Baltimore Orioles? They're in a slump. Big game against a team they're fighting for to maybe sneak into the playoffs. I think it was the Oakland A's. Brady Anderson. He went 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts in that game. Continuing a slump he was in. It was brutal. I wonder how much people were talking about it. Probably not much. Because a week later, Cal Ripken Jr. broke Lou Gehrig's record. And that was the story. Well, sometime this week, LeBron is going to score more points in an NBA uniform than any player ever. Now, he's going to have to wait another few months for Kareem's all-time scoring record, but he's about 55 points away from playoffs, regular season points. Who scored the most points in basketball history? Oh, that guy, who in year 19 might still be the best player in the league, who is going to win the scoring title, who is averaging the 5th most minutes of anyone in basketball, who is one of our pantheon athletes of all time, defying all odds. The most optimistic LeBron James supporters did not think in year 19 he was going to be scoring at the highest volume he scored at in a decade. Did not think that he would still be able to control games, hand on the joystick the way he is. And the fact that not only is it getting lost in the minutiae of Russell Westbrook's just abysmal shooting, but he is being tarred, that this is being the season. It's like, yeah, LeBron's been great, but we all know Russ is on the team because of LeBron. It's so ludicrous. And did LeBron want Russ, Wilds? Absolutely. But
Yes.
let me ask Wilds a question. Because I know you're like, oh my God, remember he told everyone to
They're
keep
under
the same
500.
energy. Yes, he was
Yeah.
supportive. He was supportive of his teammates. Yes. Wilds, you've worked with incredibly talented people. I don't know if people know this. You helped create one of Colin's TV shows. Like, that's your thing at a previous network. Colin, I think it's probably fair to say, kind of the LeBron James of sports broadcasting. Colin ever have just a ridiculous idea that you knew wouldn't work, and it was your idea as the adult in the room to be like, Colin, it's a great idea. We'll work on that, and then shelve it, never to do it again, because it's like, okay, this is my job. The Lakers, if Rob Pelinka thought Russ was going to be a disaster, then don't trade for him. Like, has Russ been a disaster? Yes. But we're watching a guy on a nightly basis remind the world, or prove to the world in some cases, why he might literally be the best athlete ever to live. Might be the best athlete ever to live. And it's like, well, they won, and LeBron was the reason, but Russ was bad. That's the bigger story. That's missing the forest for the trees on what we're witnessing.
So if Brady and the Bucks were under 500, do you think we'd be like, you know what? Oh, Tom Brady did it. Oh, he's passed for the most yards. Oh, look at all the touchdowns Tom Brady has.
Do you think they're going to finish under 500?
We'd be like, man. In fact, you did nail him for bringing AB onto the Bucks and how disruptive he was.
Well, that's
you said that Brady had to wear that. It's not. I mean, it's different. I know, but it's in the
it's
same
different.
universe.
It's different because I wasn't. First of all, it was AB, the character that AB is. But with that said, you're focused on this under 500. I don't think they're going to finish the year under 500. I don't think anyone does. But Broussard, to use the Brady analogy, they were right around 500 his first year in Tampa. They're 7-5, 7-5 up until the bye. Like the idea, I just think it is amazing to me that we are. This is the question I would ask to Brew then. In 15 years, what do you think people, let's assume the Lakers don't win the title. If they win the title, obviously, then it all changes. Assume they don't. In 15 years, what do you think the bigger story is going to be? That a guy had the greatest season ever by a mile of anyone his age or his year in the league, or that Russell Westbrook was bad? What's the bigger story once we have the perspective of history? Tell me.
Well, you're talking about a season. We were talking about one game. And you brought up what LeBron's about to do, right? When you include playoffs, scoring, he'll score more points than any other player in NBA history. Well, when that game comes, probably 2 games from now, that'll be the bigger story. Hopefully they celebrate it like they did Steph when he, surpassed the 3-point, total. Hopefully they do that, and that will be the big story. But Saturday night, that wasn't the bigger story. It was the Knicks, Nick. It was the Knicks, all right? The Knicks took them to overtime on the road. All right, the Knicks are horrible. And as Wild said, the Lakers haven't been playing very well. And so I agree, we don't want to lose sight of what LeBron is doing because it's tremendous. But when he hits these milestones, then we should celebrate them. But in real time right now, them not playing Russell Westbrook, one of the top 75 players of all time, who is still somewhat in his prime, is a bigger story than LeBron having a night that he's had, 20 times this season? I mean, he's done it virtually every time
The
out.
fact that he keeps doing it, it's like we're muted to the impressiveness of it because he's been doing it almost every night.
It's a great season.
That's my point.
It's a great season, but we're talking about one game.
Fair.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.